We're being joined by Ms. Kim Heller, who's joining us live from Johannesburg, and she's a writer and also a political analyst. Now, Ms. Heller, what do you make of this case that South Africa is making against Israel of genocide?
Thank you for the invitation to speak on your platform. Well, I speak today as a very proud South African person, because this is a very important step that South Africa has taken. A while ago, the South African government appealed to the ICC to have Israel declared guilty of war crimes. But Israel is not a signatory of the ICC. So the fact that now the government is taking this to the UN court, I think is very significant. And I'm hoping that we see a level of accountability from what I call apartheid Israel, and certainly the parallels between what happened in apartheid South Africa and apartheid Israel are very, sadly, very true and comparable. But what we see in Palestine is far worse than we experienced, or even Black South Africans experienced in this country. And the claim by Israel that it's not committing acts of genocide against the people of Palestine is contradicted by the facts that we're seeing. I just saw a report now of aerial satellite images showing that in northern Gaza, 70% of all homes have been destroyed. 50% of all buildings. Of the 36 hospitals operating in northern Gaza, most of them are not functional. Now, if that isn't an act against the people of Gaza, then I don't know what is.
Right now, and also the fact that there are, strong ties in terms of how the South African nation, of course, perceives the plight of the Palestinians, and there are comparisons. Now, how do you see this connection which South Africa draws of itself with the Palestinians? Even so, like Nelson Mandela had said, that it is important for the Palestinians to be free and to have their own state. Why is it that South Africa today sees an image of itself with the Palestinians of today?
I think South Africa's, and I speak here as a white settler in South Africa, it's very similar to what we're seeing in Palestine at the moment, where it's a colonial settler situation more than a religious matter. But South Africa, Black people in South Africa endured the most vile acts of humanity by colonial settlers. And so the people of South Africa identify very strongly with the plight of Palestinians. And in the words of Nelson Mandela, he said, none of us are free until the people of Palestine are free. And that's a sentiment that we see marches in this country, massive marches across all provinces of this country, across all demographics, in support of the people of Palestine. And the feeling is that whilst we have been let down by world leaders who have not had the courage to stand with ordinary citizens who are being attacked in the most violent manner, we can say, as people across South Africa, we have stood with the people of Palestine because we see injustice.
Right.
We see injustice not only in Palestine.
And also, how do you think, this case that South Africa has now filed against Israel in the International Court of Justice, do you think this can actually have an impact on the ground? Because at this moment, Israel has got solid backing from the United States. Even the Europeans are, to a large extent, backing what the Americans are doing in terms of the support with Israel. What do you think will be the impact of this case in the International Court of Justice?
Well, I think that there's been, I think this is the only thing, apart from a military intervention, that can make a real difference. Because if Israel can be shown to be violating the Genocide Convention, to which it is a signatory, then it can be held accountable. And the South African government is asking for this court to be held within the next week. We see a lot of the stalling by international bodies, including the ICC. So we're hoping that this will be done much more rapidly. But also South Africa has called for an immediate ceasefire. And I mean, that is, I think that they're asserting whatever they can do.
Right.
to ensure that there's some kind of relief for the people of Palestine.
And my final question to you, Ms. Keller, is now the African National Congress, led by Cyril Ramaphosa, has been brushing off a lot of Western pressure, be it on the issue of, holding drills with Russia or ramping up pressure on Israel, which is backed by Western nations. Do you think South Africa will continue doing this? Because there is obviously going to be pressure from the Western nations on South Africa as well to toe a certain line. Can Cyril Ramaphosa's government, continue doing what it is doing?
Well, I think that he's trying. I think in a way, by applying to the ICC, we almost have seen that it's quite impotent, despite its world global status. So I do think the ANC and the president are really pushing the boundaries. I mean, it's the one country in the world that is calling for such extreme measures, and it's been consistent in its support for the Palestinian people. Whether it manages to fight the giants such as the US, who are clearly complicit in this and backing up this potential genocide or an unfolding genocide, we don't know. But we're hoping that in the end, the cause of justice will overcome any other forces of such war and devastation to the people, and particularly the children and women of Gaza.
Right. Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Keller, for joining us and getting us that perspective there from Johannesburg in South Africa.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.